We're going to spend some time today talking about how to make your scholarship applications as effective as possible. This is going to be somewhat based on the Foundation Scholarship prompts. We're going to be taking a look at the actual prompt questions that the Foundation Scholarships ask. But the big picture here is just to think about general practices for scholarship applications. And these ideas should work not just for the Foundation Scholarships, but for just about any scholarship application that you're trying to make. To give you a sense of where we're going in the presentation, I want to open up just by talking a little bit about the Foundation Scholarship application to start off with, and then I want to get into sort of the nitty-gritty of how to respond to questions like this. The big three things I want to do first, I want to think about who the judges are that are deciding who gets funded, and how you can kind of get inside their heads a little bit to plan your response to make sure that it's meeting their needs. Second thing I want to think about is some basic do's and don'ts, things that will work well for you, things that will not work well for you. These are all things that students regularly do. It's just that some of them maybe they shouldn't. and then finally, we want to think about just some good writing tactics in general that lead to the best kind of outcomes. And that's always going to be about specificity is what's going to really drive that. So we'll start with thinking about the Foundation Scholarship. That is the one that this presentation is most aimed for, I suppose, just being that it's the highest profile scholarship application here at Mount Hood. But right now, the Foundation Scholarship offers these questions. What are your specific educational goals, educational plans and career goals, and why? What motivates you to achieve them? What have you done for your family, school, or community that you care about most, and why? Describe a personal accomplishment, impactful change, or experience that has occurred in your life. What skills and strengths were needed to respond, and what did you learn about yourself? And then a final question asking if you have any additional information that you would like the committee to know about. The first thing we should talk about here is that this really is an optional question. It says at the bottom here, this statement is not required and will not have any negative effect on the application if left blank. So if you're looking at that and thinking you have no idea what to say, it really is okay to leave that blank. That's the first thing we should know. The second thing we should be thinking about in a list like this is sort of what's the, we might say, meta question behind the question. What is the scholarship committee really trying to find out about you and assigning these questions to you? And the answer to that is almost always, should we fund you? Right? I mean, that's the big question that they're asking. And so while we do want to talk about our specific educational plans and career goals, we do want to talk about what we've done for family, school, or community. We want to do so thinking about how we can use that answer to make ourselves be the applicant that gets funded. And so as you're going through these, don't just answer the question, answer the sub-question behind it. So for example, if somebody is asking you to describe a personal accomplishment, impactful change, or experience that has occurred in your life, what skills and strengths were needed to respond, what did you learn about yourself? The key things we should be noticing there is what skills and strengths were needed to respond, and what did you learn about yourself? They're giving you an opportunity to talk about things that you do well, and they're giving you an opportunity to talk about ways in which you grow from experiences and actually to become a better, broader, stronger person as a result of taking things on. They're asking you, why should we fund you for college? And your answer is, because by going to college, I'm going to become a better, stronger person who can take more things on. You want your answer to effectively answer that sub-question, that meta question behind it. Fund me because I'm the one who will get something out of college and apply it to things. So if we could apply that kind of sort of logic to questions, to specific questions, one question that I wanted to take a look at, or one answer that I wanted to take a look at, is one that was submitted in response to the question, what does working in early childhood education mean to you? The response that came in reads like this. When I was growing up, my mother often told me how much she had wanted to go to college. She never had the chance. There was never enough money and always too many mouths to feed. I grew up knowing how sad she felt missing that opportunity. Yet she passed along to me her desire for education. She raised me to love learning. I could read when I was 3. I have a vivid memory of lying on the couch with her in the living room of our old house on Route 9 where the cars would streak by day and night. My mother was reading Dr. Seuss to me. We run for fun in the hot, hot sun, from one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. As she read, I followed along. That was my first memory of actually reading the words rather than just being read to. When I think of my own educational success, I attribute it first and foremost to learning to read at an early age. And the next thing I think of is that formative reading lesson with my mother one afternoon, long before we could afford to live on a better street. What strengths and weaknesses do you guys see here?
It's an engaging story. Pulls me right in.
Absolutely. The reader wants to read this. Right? It's a story that moves along at a fairly brisk pace because you only have 200 words, but it has a lot of detail anyway. And yeah, it captures the reader's attention. Bearing in mind, I mean, we're going to be thinking a little bit, basically the next slide, about the nature of judges. And judges are busy people. This is not their primary job. And if they're seeing a boring answer, they've already moved on before they get to the bottom of it. As they're going through the applications, they're looking at it and they're saying, no. No. it's really very fast. So having an engaging story like this really helps. We all know that it helps in a scholarship application to be mentioning that there is financial need, that the scholarship actually does mean something for your ability to move forward in your education. But there's a danger in applications like this of turning it too much into a sob story. It's got a lot of strengths, and that it does command the reader's attention. It does certainly address the issue of, we do in the end understand why this person wants to be involved in early childhood education. The one thing that we're maybe not getting is that sort of that key moment at the end where it all comes together in one key sentence that says, so that's why I want to do this. This is what I want to get out of it, to really drive the point home. And so, like I said, I wanted to talk about what it's like to be a judge. And you do need to put yourself in the shoes of the poor souls who are reading all these applications as they come in, because there's a small number of judges and there's a lot of people, generally hundreds of people, that are applying for these scholarships. They don't have time. They have other job responsibilities besides what they're doing. So when I was sort of joking around a moment ago about saying, read it and then just say no after 3 seconds, it can be pretty close to that if they see an answer where the student just isn't engaging them at all. You're going to get set down real fast. And because of that, they're definitely going to be scanning more than they read. And you really want that first sentence or two to grab their attention. You want something up there that makes them want to go on, so they make it to the bottom of your answer. Above all, what you're trying to do for the judges is to get them to see you as a human being. It's very easy to say no to a piece of paper. And if there's a piece of paper in front of you that's just an application that doesn't turn that applicant into a human being for the judge, it's very easy to say no. On the other hand, if the applicant becomes a human being in the imagination of the judge, then suddenly it's very hard to say no. It's really difficult to say no to a person who you've met and understand something about. That's maybe the greatest strength of the first response that we saw, was it did turn the applicant into a real human being, and one that's going to be a lot harder for the judge to say no to. So let's think about some things that folks got right and things that folks got wrong. Here's a response. These are all from actual applications that were sent in for actual scholarships, not here at Mount Hood, but at other places. And the first one reads, "Hello, my name is Brooke. I'll be a senior at Central High School in Topeka, Kansas. I was born on October 29th. I have interest in writing and mathematics. My schedule junior year was as follows: AP English Language, Honors Physics, AP Calculus AP, AP United States History, Honors 3 Spanish, and PE. My extracurricular activities are varsity cheer and key club." The judge is looking at this saying, I could have gotten that from the application form that they filled out. This is a list of things that should be in a resume, not a list of, not a descriptive thing that makes the judge know you and like you and think of you as a person who's hard to say no to. This is not going to work. If you do have a good resume, it's never a bad idea to attach a resume as like an optional document to your application. Most applications accept optional documents. Don't turn your essays into a way of putting your resume in. They don't want a list about you. They want to feel the tenor of you. They want to feel the texture of you. On the other hand, leaning into examples is a good way to go. And this is something that the Dr. Seuss one did pretty well as well. This is the start of an essay. I'm not going to go into the whole development of the example itself, but I wanted to talk a little bit about how we can maybe move in to the. We saw an example of a well-developed story from a person's life in that first example. What we didn't see was getting into it easily and getting out of it easily. And this is going to be about from a student who's talking about using the life experience of hiking the Appalachian Trail as a way of learning who he was and the things that he likes to do. This is the introduction to the essay, where he moves from sort of applying for scholarship language into telling a story language. And I think the introduction is really useful to see here. The outdoors has always played a large role in my life, whether in Boy Scouts, on my own, or with the military thus far. However, there is one outdoor experience of mine that did not involve my being in a club. I also did not get any awards words for this experience, yet it has a more profound impact on who I am than any other single event in my life. It's my through hike of the Appalachian Trail from Maine to Georgia. So this guy has walked the entire vertical length of the United States, and obviously has a lot of life experiences of that. This is a great way to move from I'm answering your question to let me tell you a story about me, and we can just see that the next maybe 100 words or so in this response are going to be jumping into that very question. What happened on that hike that changed him? What is it that he draws from taking on something hard? And this kind of question, what's something hard that you did over the course of your life that you learned from and grew from, is a very common scholarship question. And being able to tell the story of the thing that you did that was hard is a really good tactic to have. You also don't want to be unrealistic, and I guess what I mean by that is you don't want to sound like you're answering the questions in the interview portion of like a Miss Teen Universe contest. Take a listen to this answer right here. It reads, through 5 years of community service, I've learned many things. I've seen the empty hearts and the children without parents, and the broken hearts of seniors who get no visitors. Because of these experiences, I've learned that only through service can I be a fulfilled person. Therefore, I have decided to work to end the suffering of all people who face the perils of being without food, clothing, or shelter. This is now my life goal. I will also be achieving world peace, stopping all warfare, and solving the climate problem. It's a bit large, and this kind of pie in the sky, I'm going to make everything happy for everybody forever kind of answer is not an answer at all. Everybody knows you're not going to end all the suffering of all the people who don't have food, clothing, and shelter. That's just it's a noble sentiment, but it's not real. Far better would be, I want to make sure that people, in the downtown region of my own home in Topeka, Kansas, are taken care of in a way they're not right now, right? and then dig into something specific that you're doing about that, as opposed to just waving the hands around. My goal is to make good for everybody. Great to show challenging things that you've taken on. To think about big challenges you've had in your life, things that have had a formative impact on you. And this is one from a student who's talking about I think a really serious life challenge here. Who would think a game of catch would change my life? At age 10, I lost hearing in one ear and had to struggle with the challenges resulting from this invisible handicap. Though I have become more sensitive to people's problems and handicaps, learned the value of my support community, refined career goals, and challenged myself through this I have become more sensitive to people's problems and handicaps, learned the value of my support community, refined career goals, and challenged myself in new and difficult situations to help others. And so we'll note here that as soon as you're asked about a challenging thing that's happened in your life, you've been handed a question that can put you into a real trap, and that it's easy for your answer to turn into a sob story as soon as you start being asked about your challenges. And this student has been through this experiences that could very easily turn into a really sort of heart-wrenching sob story. And it's not as though talking about things that are heart-wrenching is necessarily bad for your essay. But if your essay comes across as a sort of a, oh, woe is me, the life is always sad kind of answer, and we'll talk about what that looks like in a second with the next slide, you're going to lose the judges because you sound helpless. You don't sound like you're just a sort of person who has the agency to be funded. If, on the other hand, you say, yeah, a bad thing happened to me. Let me tell you about how I grew from that. Let me tell you about how I refined my career goals. Let me tell you about how I challenged myself and how I help others as a result. Now we see somebody who's been dealt a bad hand and has grown from it and has improved from it, and that sounds exactly like the sort of person that the scholarship committee wants to fund. So that idea of saying, yeah, I have challenges, but those challenges have made me a bigger person, and I've grown as a result of those challenges. That's how you avoid sounding helpless while talking at the same time about the things that really are hard in everybody's life. Which of course leads into don't be super sad. And this is an example of somebody who turned in one that was very sort of, it sounded almost as though the person is defeated before they ever showed up to apply. Someone once said, life is like a bowl of cherries. Sometimes it's the pits. There could be no more accurate saying to describe my life thus far. Even before I was born, there was trouble. When my mother was pregnant, she got into a car accident and nearly lost her baby, me. While I don't recall this event, it was clearly an omen of things to come. Throughout my childhood, my parents were never rich. I remember one Christmas how jealous I was when I went back to school and my friends had the newest clothes and toys. Sure, I got gifts, gifts, but not the kind of expensive presents my friends had received. And now we have somebody who sounds self-pitying. We have somebody who sounds like this is taking a moment to ask the judges to be their therapist about the quality of the toys they got at Christmas. They really wanted that Millennium Falcon, and it just didn't happen. If we think about sort of the circumstances here, lack of money, well, we saw that answered, I think, reasonably effectively in that very first question that we saw, building in the question of living on Route 9, building in the question of having to work to get into a better neighborhood, but put forward in a way that said, and we learned from this and we adapted, and we became stronger people. Talked about how these experiences changed them for the better. Right? That's just the opposite of coming in here and saying life is sad, so I'm sad, so money please. Right? And you don't want to come across that way. You do, however, want to let them see what motivates you emotionally. It's not a bad idea to have emotion in your essay. This is a pretty good example of one. And this is somebody who has, honestly, I would argue, potentially worse, more difficult circumstances that this person is facing compared to the previous one. And look at the difference in how this person handles really difficult life experiences compared to the one that we just saw. My mother sat in between the dry grass. Pardon me. My mother sat in between the dry grass growing out of the puddle of the dirt water under a bridge in the hills separating Mexico from San Diego. In that exact moment, I sat aboard a plane with strangers and in possession of a name other than my own in order to be granted admission into the United States. It has now been 14 years, and my mother still sacrifices her own comfort for mine. She works 9 hours a day, 6 days a week in a machine-like position, humped over a sewing machine, altering clothes for strangers. At the same time, I sit in class, socializing, enjoying a productive school day. Now, these are obviously extremely difficult life circumstances to go through. This is a harrowing journey that's being alluded to here, not being presented in a sense of, oh, woe is me, this has made everybody sad, but rather in a sense of, I understand the sacrifices that my parents went through to get me to where I am, and I'm going to work real hard in school to make sure that I honor those sacrifices. By the end of just this portion of the response, it's already starting to turn to the bigger question of the law that'll cover most of the rest of the response, why I work really, really hard to make sure that I honor the sacrifice of those who came before me. So by leaning into sort of the sort of difficult subject matter questions, by leaning into the lessons that we derive out of them, by leaning into the idea of personal growth coming out of them, that's how we can impress the judges. So, a lot of what we've been talking about implies sort of 4 key strategies that we've been using all the way through here. One, you do want to be original. You want to be offering answers that are not necessarily the sort of cookie cutter answers that everybody will give. I understand not everybody has the experience of having emigrated from Mexico in a difficult way, but we all do have original individual things in our lives. We saw in some of the previous questions just the idea of being read to at an early age by a caring mom. It's not that unique a life experience, but it's an answer that the judges probably aren't going to see very much. And it's one that brings a new angle to it, will wake them up a little bit. After they've read the 50th essay about how being on the cheerleading squad or the football team really changed their life, they're going to be really happy to hear just one about hiking the Appalachian Trail. and by having the answer that isn't the answer everybody else is giving, you're putting yourself in a much better situation. Like I said right at the start of this, you definitely want to think about the underlying question. Don't just answer, what did you do for your family? Answer, why does what you did for your family make you into a good applicant for this application, for the scholarship? Definitely try to share a slice of life. Any storytelling you can do in here is fantastic, but this is how you get them to see you as a human being. This is how you stop being a piece of paper and start being a person and become hard to say no to. And then finally, showing passion. They want to fund people who care. They want to fund people who love what they're doing. They want to fund people who are passionate about changing the world and making things better. If you can help them to see that that's who you are, they're going to want to fund you. So, Now, I want to drill down a little bit on sort of the showing portion of this, which is the way of, and showing is a term I should be defining for you guys in a second. This is how you make a slice of life work. You're trying to offer stories about yourself. You're trying to get the readers to see, the judges to see who you are. If you want to be seen, you better have to give them the opportunity to imagine you in their own mind. It's very easy to fall into writing strategies where we just tell them things. Maybe the worst sort of telling strategy we saw in here was I took AP Calculus and Honors Biology and U.S. History and so forth. That was pure, just let me tell you the things. Right? The shown things we've seen in here, let me tell you about Mom reading to me as a kid. Let me tell you about what it was like in the days after I lost my hearing. These are places where where the judges are being asked to imagine a visual, sonic, tactile experience in their own head. The more they're imagining you, the more you're turning into a human being. The Russian playwright and short story writer Anton Chekhov used to hold workshops for students to help them become better writers. And one of the key pieces of advice that he loved to give to his students was, don't tell me the moon is shining, show me the glint of light on broken glass. And ever since Chekhov offered that advice, a lot of writing teachers have fallen back on the idea of showing rather than telling. This is a crucial strategy for writing scholarship applications. If you are making your judges sit there and listen to you tell them all the things you've done and tell them all the things you believe, you don't have their interest. They're going to skim at best. They're going to deny you in about 35 seconds. If you can slow down and get them to see who you are, see the things you've done, see your passion, experience that, that's where you're going to get the judges to imagine you as an individual human being. And now it's really hard to say no to you. So an example of this, we don't want to say, I'm a people person and I get along well with my fellow students and coworkers. I'm good at calming people down. We just told them these things, and we told them in the worst sort of cliches, right? I mean, every resume up in that top line says, I'm a people person and I get along well with my fellow workers, right? So we've not only told people, we've told people in a cliche that could apply to any human being who ever wrote a resume. Right? If we can instead show them specifically who we are, we can say something like this. I remember my first day as a GED student. I was scared to go back to school, but then I saw another student, Anna, who looked even more scared than I felt. We started talking, and I helped her calm down. Now we see somebody being a people person. We see somebody getting along with a fellow student. We see somebody helping somebody else calm down. This asserts that the person that has these characteristics. This demonstrates that the person has these characteristics and starts to do some storytelling to prove that they have these characteristics. That's compelling. That's not. That gets us pretty much to the end of the show. In terms of sort of next steps as you're working on your scholarship letters, I do want to recommend that as you're building those scholarship applications, bring them in and see us. We're in AC 3333, which is from this room just down the hall, or for those of you on video, right above the library. And you can also get a hold of us for Zoom meetings or just for even email feedback on your scholarship applications by emailing us at writing.tutor@mhcc.edu. We're happy to help as you work on draft, revise, brainstorm, any level of what you're doing through your scholarship letters. We are happy to help at every single stage. And we do a lot of work with scholarship applicants, and I firmly believe that the best thing any scholarship applicant can do at Mount Hood to improve their chances of getting a scholarship is to come by the Writing Center and make sure you're not having to do this as an individual act of heroism. Let writing be the team sport it was supposed to be. If you want to apply for scholarships, at least at Mount Hood, there's the link at mhcc.edu/scholarships. And for other scholarships besides that, I direct you towards Google. So on that note, thank you all very much for taking the time to come today. And this has been the workshop.